Do I regret studying psychology? I wanted a meaningful life. I told myself that as long as I could feed myself and had a decent roof over my head, then everything would be alright. To be clear, I don't regret studying psychology, but sometimes when I see my friends earning double or maybe even more than quadruple of what I'm earning, sometimes I start to think, what if I studied cognitive science on top of that, or statistics, or data science, to help me supplement income or get a better job just so I can earn some more money before doing a PhD. But if you take anything from this video, then take this. Comparison is a thief of joy. I started writing this video thinking about how I really needed more money for my camera expenses, for traveling expenses, for going home, saving up money for my family and the future. But realistically, I am earning enough. I have enough food on my plate every day, every meal. I have a nice roof over my head, a really nice apartment I'm staying in actually right now. And even if I do get into a PhD program next year and I'll be earning not an ideal amount, I'm sure things will be okay. And even though many of my friends are earning multiple times of my salary, it's not like they're free from problems anyway. And despite the nice paycheck, some of them don't even want to stick with their jobs. And that's completely okay. I think the bottom line here is that the grass is always greener, or often greener on the other side. I'm just spitting out my thoughts on psychology, just for those prospective students who might be interested in studying psychology, or just people in general, because I always hear when I was in school in Berkeley that when people are studying computer science or data science, which is probably the two most common majors, they'd ask me what I'm studying, I'd be telling them, oh, I study psychology, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I wish I studied something like psychology. That's so cool, it's so interesting. I love learning about like the mind and behavior. So whichever camp you fall into, this video is for you. If you major in psychology, there's going to be two common paths, not two only paths, so bear in mind. The first path is the path to therapy, and the second path is the path to a PhD, which takes you to the research, professor opportunities. And both take quite a significant amount of time or money to eventually pay off. If you want to be a counselor or a therapist in the US and these two positions are very overlapped, then it's going to take you about 2 more years of graduate school, in the US at least, and about 1,000 hours of supervised hours to get your licensure. Then maybe you'll start to earn maybe 70 or 80K a year, and that's like the average in Wisconsin at least. Like it obviously depends on where you live in the US or even outside the US. In Singapore, it's going to be about 3.5 to 4.5 thousand a month. And the PsyD is another option. So this is somewhat similar to a clinical psychology PhD. So it allows you to become a clinical psychologist or a therapist. But the difference here with a PhD is that it doesn't involve any research and it just focuses on clinical application. But another difference is that this takes 4 to 5 years and you have to pay out of pocket, unlike a PhD, which is fully funded, usually. So for this track, you're looking at about 120,000, give or take, for the whole time, just for tuition fees, and that's excluding like room and board and food. And then there's the PhD route, and I just want to say getting into PhD is tough. Clinical psychology PhD, for example, that's the most common PhD route that psychology students want to get into. The acceptance rate for schools that I applied to, like Berkeley, was like 0.2%. I just wanted to add an additional clip because I just came back from a conference in Portland, and I spoke to lots of PhD students in psychology, and all of them had previous experience, like post-bachelor experience doing research assistant positions or lab manager positions. So that's something that's often required by PhD programs, like research experience. If it's not extensive during your undergrad, you're kind of expected to take on a full-time job after your bachelor's degree to spend some time in conducting research for another lab. That's what I'm doing right now, and that's what I'm going to continue to do for the next year. And in the US at least, a PhD kind of includes the master's. That's why it takes about like 6 years on average. So if you do your first 1 or 2 years of your PhD and you, for some reason, drop out, you will likely drop out with a master's degree in hand. And I know like in countries like the UK, they usually require a master's degree first before doing a PhD. And PhD in the UK is like very research focused, and it's only about 4 years. And on that note, I also wanted to talk about when people usually start a PhD. And in psychology, the median age to start in your first year is actually 31. And this is largely because when you first get the bachelor's degree, it's unlikely that you'll have enough research experience to get accepted into psych program immediately. unless you're really exceptional. And I do know a couple of people who got in straight away from undergrad, but most of the time we do have to work at a full-time research position, like my friends and like myself as well. And I do also know people who went into industry first or did their counseling or therapy degrees first and then transitioned into a PhD later on. That's probably why the median age is so high. And even if you do get in, it's going to be about 6 years, at least in America, all while making somewhere between 20K to 30K a year, which is below that minimum wage. And if you want to be a professor afterwards, it's not going to be that simple either. The first position that normally follows a PhD program is a postdoctorate fellowship. And this lasts for maybe on average a couple years, and on average maybe 60 to 70K a year in America. And then you're going to have to apply again to get into an assistant professorship somewhere in the university. And then after that is associate professor and then full professor, where you get like a tenure track. And that's where you'll be earning, hopefully, a decent chunk of money. Very comfortable position, but you're still going to be working a lot probably. And I don't think many professors eventually get to that tenure track position. It's a very highly coveted position. So it seems like the journey basically never ends. But at least you're going to do some meaningful work, right? And I would kind of put a caveat on that one, because it can be difficult to align your research interests with what the funders want to fund and also what other professors are interested in. So if professors are not interested in your work, they won't cite your work and it won't be as impactful, and stuff like citations kind of help you boost your reputation as a professor or a researcher. And even if you do end up funding a research project that you really like, that research project doesn't last forever. Maybe a couple years, and once that's over, you need to redo the whole process of like finding another funder, writing another project proposal, and starting all over again. So in this way, your salary is never really stable, unless you're a teaching professor at a university, for instance. And I always wanted to do a PhD, but honestly, it takes so long, and it is difficult to get into. I applied this year for the first time, and I got my first 2 and only 2 rejections. But even if I do get it next year, and it takes me about 6 years to complete a PhD, then I'll be in my mid-30s by the time I'll be earning like a real salary that can sustain myself and is enough for me to build savings for the future. So it doesn't sound too fantastic. So do I regret studying psychology? For me, definitely not. I've always felt that this was the path for me. Even though the money wasn't ideal and job security not really there either sometimes, I always felt that there is no other path that I'd rather take. Although I probably don't want to become a professor in the long run, I would still love to learn more about meditation-based practices and how they can be applied to clinical settings, social settings, and to therapy-based settings as well. For me, I still feel like there's no other path out there that would make me feel more satisfied. But for you, things might be different, and it's worth thinking about. It does limit my plans for savings and for my future, but really in hindsight, I don't regret anything, and I'm extremely grateful for the work I'm doing right now and for the experience that I've been able to garner in the past couple of years here in Wisconsin. And also, the money's not eye-watering, but it is honestly enough. And just that maybe my idealistic lens has cleared up a little bit. Like, I can't travel home to Singapore as often as I'd like to. I have to eat and cook meals at home as much as possible. And for my camera gear, well, the used market is really my only friend. But that's okay. For me, I think these trade-offs are worth the work that I'm doing and the work that I'll be doing in future. And if you're already in the psychology major or psychology field, then it might be worth reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. And maybe you'll find that a meaningful life is better than 6-figure paychecks. But that's not for me to decide. That's for you to think about. And thank you for sticking around till the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and hope that your life is better for it. And please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, let me know what you think, and see you on the next one.